It's over 9,000!
Welcome, Super Elite Warriors, to Final Forum, a podcast for the discussion of all things Dragon Ball. I am your host, Jelly, an elite recruiting member of the Frieza Force on a mission to find the best warriors from across the galaxy to join the greatest army of all time, and I am joined, as always, by my new recruit co-host.
This is the Bekinney, and join us as we uncover the cultural inspirations and hidden history behind Akira Toriyama's seminal franchise. But I can barely see anymore.
Yeah, it's really aggravating. We have no idea which way we're headed.
And something about it's kind of giving me a headache.
It's probably the piercing blueness of it. It's throwing off our rods and cones.
You know, normally I'd probably correct you or clarify your not entirely accurate depiction of biology, but man, my head's pounding.
It's like someone's twisting a knife in my brain.
It's like I'm being forced to listen to you speak for an extended period of time.
I'm gonna do something about this.
Are you sure that's wise?
I don't care. Would you say the light is emanating from over there?
I can't even see you anymore. Over where?
This is ridiculous. Zitty Blast! There. That's better.
Sort of.
Sort of?
Well, the light's out and the gravity no longer feels like it's so oppressively heavy it hurts, but I feel an odd rumbling and my eyes are going to take a minute to adjust.
Well, while they do, we can get into this week's topic. And this week, we got 5 more episodes of Dragon Ball Z, episodes
36.
Something through 40. 36 through 40?
Yeah, 36 through 40 is what I got.
Yes, because we got 5 more episodes. It's a combination of ending the Saiyan Arc and starting up the Namek Arc, but since I think roughly about 22 seconds of what we're about to see in these 5 episodes is in what you might consider the actual Namek Arc, we will consider this our end of the Saiyan Arc and our we're going to do our usual manga comparison wrap up. But before we do that, let's hear what happened in these 5 episodes.
All right. So starting with episode 36 titled Picking Up the Pieces, the Z Warriors succeeded on defending Earth from the might of the Saiyans, but there are still some heavy losses. So what to do? First, we take stock. Yajirobe seems to be relatively okay. Krillin's roughed up, but still vertical. Gohan unconscious. And Goku, well, he might as well be. Especially now that the rest of the Kami crew are on the scene with Chi-Chi in tow. Without Piccolo, and by extension Kami, the Dragon Balls are gone. There aren't any more Senzu either, so it looks like the next stop is their HMO. On the way, they pick up the remains of their fallen, and Krillin reveals that there may yet be a way to restore life to their fallen comrades. On the way to the hospital, Bulma looks back at the time shared with Yamcha and tries to process her grief. Krillin, similarly, reliving the horrors he witnessed in battle. And then, there's the happy commercial cut break, like music transition to really mess with you, tonal whiplash.
Yes.
So what was Krillin saying before about a way to revive everyone? Well, given context clues he picked up from the Saiyans, he thinks that Piccolo and Kami's home planet may actually have their own set of Dragon Balls that they could use to bring everyone and Earth's Dragon Balls back. Just one problem, though. How do you even know where Namek is? Well, good thing Goku has the hookup with God himself. A short chat later, and Kaio-sama busts out his address book. For you younger listeners, an address book is exactly like the one on your phone, but it's kept in like a spiral hardcover notebook. Every family had one back in the day, and this is just an overly long joke trying to convey that he gives them the coordinates to planet Namek. I suppose, given Daima, he could have told them to go to hell. That would have been a great joke that I think he would have loved personally. But he decides to give them the actual location. So now that we have the where, how do we handle the how? Well, Bulma's calculations put them at just over 4,300 years away from with Earth's fastest ship. Krillin floats the idea of commandeering Nappa's old ship. And, this might actually work. Which brings us to episode 37, titled Plans for Departure. Our heroes set about getting their wounds tended to. Without Senzu, this makes for a much more arduous process. Krillin wants to bounce and go looking for Nappa's ship, but Roshi and Chi-Chi aren't having it. Bulma stops by for a visit and tells everyone to turn on the news. Nappa's ship has actually already been found and is in custody. But not to worry, Bulma has the remote that Krillin found. With a few button presses, it'll fly right to her and she can start working on building a new ship. Except that she's now inadvertently put it into a self-destruct sequence and it blows up. Fortunately, a literal Deus Ex Machina shows up, Mr. Popo. He tells the heroes that there's yet another ship that can take them on the trip. Kami's. Bulma gets voluntold to go with Popo and check out the ship, but she has to get over her racism first, with Roshi being a perv on top of that. They arrive at what Popo assumes is a ship, and Bulma gets a quick rundown on Kami's childhood, and with the utterance of the word Piccolo, the ship mysteriously opens. Bulma has a look around and confirms that this is likely a spaceship. They deduce that the ship runs on speech, and basically speech from the Namekian language. This leads to a couple of puns that aren't even really puns because half the pun is a made-up language, so it could just be whatever you want. And an impromptu trip to Jupiter. And that brings us to episode 38, titled Nursing Wounds. Now that they have a ship, Bulma gets to work modifying it to be a bit more comfortable for humans. Back at the hospital, everyone's convalescing under the watchful eye of Chi-Chi. Despite all this good news, it seems Gohan is bothered by something. He takes off while Chi-Chi's distracted and the others are sleeping. So where'd the Titan toddler teeter off to? A new training regimen, of course. Seems our boy has some unresolved survivor's guilt that he needs to work through. Bulma stops by for another visit, and they start to go over logistics. It's agreed that Bulma needs to go in case of mechanical issues, Krillin for muscle, and then Gohan finally volunteers to go as well. Much to Chi-Chi's chagrin. With lessons in Namekian, it'll take Bulma about 10 days to get everything ready. Eventually, they all meet at Kame House on the fated day. The outlooks on this trip vary quite a bit, and with Bulma taking it super seriously, Krillin treating it kind of like a vacation, and Chi-Chi thinking it's like boarding school or like a school field trip or something. They take off for Planet Namek, and we see that Gohan has really taken a shine to Piccolo by starting his own Piccolo-inspired wardrobe, which brings us to episode 39, titled Friends or Foes. So what kind of wacky misadventures are waiting for our heroes in space? Well, not much, it would seem. Bulma seems to be passing time with magazines and drinking, while the boys are doing image training, which appears to be some kind of like psychic sparring. Speaking of training, it looks like Goku isn't taking his recuperation seriously. I'm sure Chi-Chi would be keeping him on bed rest, but she's too busy actually caring about the welfare of their child. Speaking of welfare, there's a certain Saiyan prince who is also flying through space looking for a space hospital. But enough about him. Back to the Namekian ship. Bulma and the others find themselves under attack by a swarm of smaller ships. Then another ship that looks exactly like theirs crashes into them. Or at least, that's just how it appears at first. It seems it was actually some sort of fancy cloaking tech. So what's going on here? Well, Team National Lampoon Space Vacation finds themselves on a space station full of old wrecks. What seems like a derelict station soon becomes a death trap as our heroes happen across multiple traps. Shades of that cave episode where they were running away from General Blue. Mm-hmm. I saw it was like very similar, like even how the traps were structured.
Oh, yeah.
Krillin even busts them out of an acid trap by blasting a hole in the wall, which is a great idea on a space station. We cut back to Vegeta, who still seems salty about his loss. I hope he doesn't let it get to him. Anyway, the Trap Fest, I probably shouldn't call it that, continues, and the expenditure of energy gets the boys a little hungry. Luckily, someone's just happened to leave out a fancy meal. No way that could be a trap. Oh no, it was a trap! And Bulma has been captured. It looks like this station is the setting of a cyberpunk Lord of the Flies. Which brings us to episode 40, Held Captive. So Bulma's a hostage, and at this point, I'm concerned these kids might be eating each other for survival, which is good. There's actually like a really good use of lack of score here. There's like no background music at all, and just kind of like the dialogue and some background noise, which really helps sell like the level of desperation, I think.
Yeah.
Krillin loses a fight to a little girl, and then the locals accuse him of being Frieza's men. Fortunately, a meteor shower puts a hold on the hostage situation, giving the boys a chance to break Bulma out. Sadly, it also nearly crushes a bunch of people on board when a ceiling plate gets knocked loose. Good thing there's two inhumanly strong fighters to catch it, and an inhumanly smart pilot to keep them from any further damage. Gohan even saves a little girl. The locals still don't trust them, but their leader Zeshi and the little girl stand up for them. It's explained that they are a ship full of refugees from a planet that was destroyed by the forces of Frieza. Horrible smear propaganda. They are currently headed to a nearby, air quotes, because space, it's relative, friendly planet. They send our heroes on their way and even offer them some directions to help save them some time. I'm sure there's no other additional dangers out there, like Vegeta finally getting to crash into his health insurance, or maybe a spacequake, perhaps. Well, whatever that shortcut was, it seemed to have worked. There's Planet Namek. And that's where we end on our recap this week.
Yes. Real quick, we think potentially that Zeshin's name is a pun on wheat, which is Seitan, Seitan.
Oh.
I just found that because I was wondering. I was curious about it.
Well, food names seem to be a theme with Toriyama.
Right.
He must have been a hungry man.
So this is like a mixed bag of episodes, in my opinion. I actually really like the first couple, even though there's not a whole lot happening, because it really sells the level of devastation.
Yeah.
Of just how bad this was.
Especially that first episode when like the rest of the characters show up and they fully finally realize like, oh man, like only 4 people survived out of what was it, like the 8 they sent in the first place. So half their friends that went to go fight are gone, and we get a couple really nice scenes. I say really nice, this is relative, but like really well executed scenes where these characters are dealing with their grief, and it was interesting to see. Especially because, like, anybody who's a Dragon Ball fan knows, it's the Dragon Balls will bring them back to life. It'll be fine.
This is some of the longest that this show has ever kind of wallowed in misery, though. And I think that's what kind of really sells it and makes it work, is because historically, anytime a character dies, it immediately is, well, let's just go get the Dragon Balls, or, well, now I'm going to get revenge, or, like, it's immediate. Here's what we're going to do next. This is an entire episode, basically, almost, except for, like, the very end of things are bad. Yeah. And we maybe have a slight idea of how they could not be bad, but we don't even know if it's going to work.
I think probably the closest we got to this previously was the Demon King Piccolo arc, where he kills Roshi, Tien, and Chaozu.
And destroys the Dragon Balls.
Roshi and Chaozu. Yeah, and destroys the Dragon Balls.
Right. But you didn't get as much time there to sort of wallow in that, because it immediately became it happens in like the middle of that arc, and so it's immediately, well, we have to stop Piccolo before he can do more damage.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he's stopped, it's like immediately it becomes, Goku, I have a plan to go see Kami, and you're like, okay, so now we're like immediately off to the next thing. This feels like the longest that we really sit and wallow and really are allowed to feel the impact of characters' deaths.
I also think that while that last episode with the space station is not necessarily to my liking, I do like the idea of it. Mm-hmm. Because traveling to space, man, your setting has just grown so much. There's, because it literally anything you can think of could happen out there.
Right.
Even this idea of like going to an alien planet and like trying to use their Dragon Balls, like at this point, if you're this is your first time watching through it or reading through it, you have no idea what Planet Namek is like. You have no idea what the Namekian people outside of Kami and Piccolo are like.
Right.
And
do they speak English even?
Right. And then it's mentioned by Vegeta that like the planet Namek is or at least common enough knowledge that more people know about it in space. And there's even rumors that like they can do magic and things like that.
Right.
So it's this interesting kind of situation in between these arcs, and I thought it was really well done. Where like yes, we're exploring the grief that these characters feel. But then there's that little glimmer of hope that Krillin manages to give them. And then things start to come together. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe this will actually work. And then these guys take off into space. And now it's all bets are off. We have no idea what's going to happen going forward.
And I think like just continuing on with like a little more editorial on these episodes. Like I think the episode right after that, episode 36, even though there's not a whole lot happens in that episode, I think the animation quality and the art quality in that episode, where they like go and find the Namekian ship, is really, really strong. It's the episode with the more pure filler episodes with the mirror ship are a little bit lower quality animation. And then also like I'd say of this, like we talk about this being a mixed bunch of episodes. Episode 39, I don't like 40 does a little bit better for me because I don't know. It's just
the main reason why I didn't like it. It was too much like that episode in Gohan's training arc where he found the orphans.
Yeah, okay, I could see that. 39. The reason it bothers me is they encounter all these ships in space. They blow them up, and they never talk about that ever again.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering if it's just kind of like some hand wavy thing where it's like, oh no, that's like defenses for the ship or something, and you just flew right through them.
Yeah, I don't know.
In which case, my question would be, well, how bad are defenses on your ship that like we can fly right through them, taking no damage?
Right. So that part is a little bit lower, and then yes, like the repeat of General Blue. Although I kind of get that, like. I guess at this point, if you're going to be pulling in filler and you're going to be doing that filler where you're just kind of repeating yourself, hey, doing some filler from, at this point, quite a long time ago?
Yeah.
Not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, and also that definitely wasn't the worst episode in the Blue Arc from my memory.
For sure.
But again, it's filler, so like they don't have a ton of time or budget to come up with new stuff. I understand there's limitations, but
right,
yeah.
So we'll put our bow on the Saiyan Arc in a minute and talk about the wrap up and do our grades and talk about the manga and stuff. Although there's not going to be a whole lot of compare and contrast. It's not going to be a whole lot of contrast. Aside from saying, well, this was filler and that was filler, but so we might be a little bit light on notes, but there's not a whole lot to point out in this batch of episodes, at least that I could find really readily. There's some things, and so like we can get into it. For starters, the hospital where they go to is named Wukong Hospital. That's an obvious reference to Sun Wukong from Journey to the West. Now, in the hospital, Goku's little bed, healing pod, whatever it is, it struck me as visually interesting and different than like typically when you see a character get beaten up and put into traction in a hospital sequence. It's the pulleys and levers, and maybe a leg is up in the air, maybe an arm is up in the air. Or Futurama has done that, I know for sure, and that the Simpsons have also.
Yeah.
But this struck me as a little different, very different than that. I couldn't find any direct visual references that I could say like, oh, it's definitely this.
Yeah.
However, it kind of feels a bit to me like the chair in which the characters in Alien first see a space jockey. It's not exact, it's not one-to-one, but I'll try to post some pics to social medias, at least Blue Sky, which is where we have our strongest social media presence these days, and you could maybe see what I mean from it.
I can see it, especially but they don't have him wearing this, but like if he had been wearing like an oxygen mask or something like that,
right? I
think it would have made it even more obvious.
And it is an iffy comparison, but we do see Bulma in the next episode after they're traveling through space, And she's wearing nothing but the undershirt and underwear, and that's a clear reference to Sigourney Weaver at the end of Alien.
Yep.
So that made my thought come right back around to, well, maybe that is the space jockey. Maybe someone's picking up on the wavelengths here.
You're so in tune with Toriyama Sensei.
And then speaking of the underpants Bulma, which is that a tautology?
It might be.
Underpants bloomers?
Maybe.
When she wakes up, the first thing she does is crack open a beer and chug it. Now, I can't think of anything that inspired this. I can think of this inspiring something else. In Neon Genesis Evangelion, the main character Shinji is forced to live with a woman named Misato, who is essentially everything Bulma is in these scenes, but just like more energetic and more positive, kind of like trying to put a more positive spin on things, right? Where Bulma is constantly yelling at people to shut up and try to bring their mood down. Misato is always yelling at people to try and bring their mood up. But she's a slob. She inappropriately wears undies only in front of a young child. She cracks a cold one first thing in the morning. And then also, just in a similar way to Bulma, she's very valuable to like the core missions of the characters, and she's an asset to the overall plot and the thrust of the show. So even though she's in there and it's like that mildly kind of inappropriate type of thing, it's like it's serving a purpose also.
Yeah, I could see that.
And so if you've ever seen Evangelion, Misato, at least in those like couple of moments, I wonder if Hideaki Anno was watching Dragon Ball and was like, "Hey, I like that."
That's probable. I do have a confession to make, even though I am a bit of an anime nerd. I have not ever actually watched Neo Genesis Evangelion.
It's good.
And I want to. It's on my list. I just haven't had the time to do it.
The good thing about Evangelion is it's fairly short.
Yeah.
26 episodes in a movie.
And I think that's part of the reason why I haven't watched it. Because I'm like, oh, it's not that long. Like I can devote a weekend to that or something sometime. And
the bad thing about it is it's tremendously dense. And it is a series that is more rewarding the more you sit on it, the more you talk about it, the more you kind of pull it apart and think about it. It is a little bit lighter on some of the visceral thrills that you would think of, that where people will tell you, oh, it's a show about giant robots trying to stop these giant monsters from blowing up the entire Earth.
Yeah, but that's like a super surface level understanding of it, right?
Yes. It's much more of a show about growing up and growing up with depression.
Ah, okay. Oh, that'll probably speak to me very well then.
Because that's Shinji. Shinji is like he's an awkward teenager who is struggling with all the awkward teenager things, and he's also just horribly depressed.
All right. I guess I'll have to move that up on the list and get it done.
The first time I ever watched it, I was like, it was okay. And then I watched the Rebuild movies, which like I feel like hardcore Evangelion fans kind of don't like.
Mm-hmm.
I liked them. And so I was like, I actually really liked those. Maybe I'm due for a revisit of the series. And then the second time I watched the series, I enjoyed it more.
That's what I've heard too, is that the repeat viewings kind of make it better in a lot of ways.
So,
all right. Anyways, getting back on topic.
Yes.
So we also get our first glimpse of Frieza Planet in these episodes. Or a Frieza planet, I should say. Whether or not it's Frieza's home planet or just one he controls, it's never really explicitly said. But it's interesting to note that the architecture of the city the city that we briefly glimpse, it's fairly stock, sort of like alien, sci-fi, futuristic, otherworldly architecture. But what's important to note is that this style was originally created by Frank Frazetta. Frazetta was a fantasy artist whose work in comics, on book covers, paintings, posters, album covers, earned him the nickname the Godfather of Fantasy Art. He's one of the most renowned illustrators of the 20th century and the subject of a 2004 documentary called Painting with Fire. Frazetta recalled shortly before his death that he was always drawing things that his teachers in art school found so unique that he said he never really learned anything from them. They'd just comment, nice, nice, but perhaps if you tried this small tweak, and then would leave him to keep working. He says he learned the most from a younger age from his friends and especially from his grandmother's encouragement, who would always tell him when he had drawn something particularly interesting. Frazetta started drawing comics with doing cleanup work before getting a more prominent role drawing a regular newspaper comic strip. And then he eventually became an artist for Conan the Barbarian, where his career really started to take off. In particular, to note with regards to this Frieza planet, is his artwork for John Carter and the Savage Apes of Mars. Frazetta's art became extremely influential to the likes of George Lucas, Guillermo del Toro, Robert Rodriguez, the wrestlers Kamala and Jerry the King Lawler, Metallica's Kirk Hammett, and possibly Akira Toriyama.
Yeah, and there's a typo in our notes. It's actually the 2003 documentary.
Oh, no!
But
you know what it was? It was probably all that bright light. I think my eyes are still adjusting.
That's just a minor. I just want to make sure that if someone tries to go look for Painting with Fire, they're not looking for
the wrong thing.
A year associated with that movie that doesn't exist. But yes, if you look at this, I'll try and post pictures of Frazetta's artwork for John Carpenter and the Savage Apes of Mars. But if you look at the city that's in the background of that, it looks very similar to the brief glimpse we get of this Frieza planet city. And that general style was sort of pioneered by Frazetta, is my understanding. I do have one more thing before we get to the manga comparison and arc wrap-ups and grades. As I was looking for inspirations for the mirror ship, I kept coming up with kind of nothing. But I also kept coming across a fairly interesting Soviet-era experiment / bit of science / bit of trivia / German trivia / post-Soviet trivia, and I couldn't let the coincidence of coming across some wild Soviet-era science go, considering the last time that came up when we did our Muscle Tower filler, we learned about the ape-human hybrids they tried to create.
Of course. Who can forget those?
So, in 1923, German rocket pioneer Hermann Oberth proposed launching a mirror into space in the book The Rocket into Planetary Space, based on his PhD-level thesis about how to reach escape velocity and launch rockets into space, which was rejected for being too implausible. Among the many subjects in this book, there's a concept of leaving a series of concave mirrors in orbit which could be repositioned readily to reflect light and illuminate dark areas of the world. He linked this to the Titanic specifically in his book, claiming that if such mirrors existed, they could have lit the sea lanes for the Titanic so that they would never have hit the iceberg, or assisted with rescue operations, or even melted the icebergs in the ship's path. In the 1940s, the idea was taken up again by German physicists who wanted to build a sun gun to act as a death ray, allowing them to set fire to cities and evaporate enemies' water supplies. In the 1970s, the idea was revisited again by German astrophysicists who were brought to the U.S. as part of Operation Paperclip and wanted an array of mirrors in space to help farmers cultivate 24/7 or supply solar panels with light for electricity demands. And then throughout the 1980s, NASA looked at the idea but could never secure funding for it. A Russian scientist then sort of comes along, or rather was along kind of the whole time, named Vladimir Siromotnikov. He had worked on the Vostok rocket that took Yuri Gagarin to space, which we talked about back when we talked about the Saiyan space pods. He came up with with the concept actually of using solar sails. The idea being, hey, if we put these like big mylar nets out, as the sun's particles hit them, we can use that as thrust and sail on solar winds. But the Soviet Union fell apart, and attaining funding in a post-Soviet era was difficult. However, he proposed some tweaks to this theory, and he said that the solar sails could be repurposed and potentially act as mirrors, with the aim of providing light to regions of the country that rarely see it at all during the winter, like Siberia. Russia then worked in earnest to make this dream a reality, because they thought, hey, if this can work, we could potentially create farmlands that we don't normally have.
Yeah, because Russia's biggest issue is that 4/5 of it are just constantly cold.
Yeah. So using mylar sheets They theorized that they could reflect a light 50 times brighter than the moon on an area of about 50 square miles. The first field test in 1993 was not quite this successful, but it wasn't a complete failure. Russian cosmonauts worked from the Mir space station, and they were able to set up a mirror system that they wound up reflecting light with about the same level of luminosity as a full moon onto an area of about 3 square miles. And I read a little bit more about this. I would encourage people to go and look this up. Just look up like Space Mirrors 1993, and you can read a whole lot more about this. People on the ground actually reported that they could kind of sort of see it, like pass through, even people who through clouds and stuff. So there was reason to be optimistic. Despite concerns then raised by astronomers about light pollution and ecologists about confusion in animals with potential disruptions to their circadian rhythm, a second, larger mirror experiment was attempted in 1999. Unfortunately, a series of command issues caused the mylar sheets to get tangled in the mirror's antennas, and the mirror clumsily left orbit, disintegrating. A third experiment was proposed, but it never gained any funding, and the project died out.
All right. So the real important question is, when they managed to reflect the sunlight, what was the measurement of Blitz waves in there?
Oh. Yeah, what's the Blitz waves? In the Viz manga, they call them Zeno waves, I think.
Oh, I was just going off the
I just no,
anime,
yeah. I just was thinking in the Viz manga, since we're about to transition to that. Does this also was it Archimedes who built the solar death ray?
What's the context for that? Like the Greek guy, Archimedes?
My understanding is that Archimedes built an array of mirrors to focus sunlight onto Roman ships and set them ablaze during an invasion of some kind. And
I was thinking more Greek fire, but that's I guess that might be a thing. I don't know. I've never heard of that.
And there's I can't remember. I'm very iffy on this. My veracity.
It's all right.
And in fact, Googling it really quick here says that it's Archimedes' death ray is a legendary story suggesting Archimedes used a system of mirrors to focus sunlight onto Roman ships and set them ablaze during the siege of Syracuse, but its historical veracity is debated. And people have been able to sort of get it to work. They've been able to figure out ways that it might have worked. If he was able to control it well enough, he could have gotten the sails to burst into flames, or I think based on what the ships they think at the time were made of, it might have caused some of the adhesives that hold boards and things to the ship and waterproof it to melt, which then would have compromised the integrity of the boats and such. So that's my understanding, having A, remembered it just now as we were talking about it, and B, done about 14 seconds of Googling. So
some pretty good Googling.
So if anyone out there's you guys are totally wrong, it's been totally misproven, or you guys are totally wrong, it's been totally proven, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, send us a link. We like to educate ourselves.
I just thought of that just now. The Archimedes death ray.
Right on.
So yes, so let's do what we do and do some manga wrap up. Like we said, not a whole lot to really do the compare contrast thing.
Mm-hmm.
But couple of things that I noticed while reading it.
Go for it.
Piccolo's speech is very different or differently translated in these Viz versions. He speaks much more, I don't want to say Yoda-esque, because it's not really Yoda, but let me see if I can find a specific example here. He talks in a more, know you thou the strength of Piccolo, or something like that.
Almost like Shakespearean.
Yes.
Interesting.
What say you? Know you not the one whom you show such insolence?
Oh, yeah, that's pretty. I can see why they probably changed that for English. That's a bit of a. That's a lot of work to read and comprehend that.
I understand. You could very much understand why they changed that in the anime then, to have him speak. And I don't even know if he speaks that way in Japanese, right? That's just how the Viz translators chose to translate it.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
that was definitely not the version that I read.
And you three have not a prayer against him. Place your hopes in me, or place them not at all. Know you well his strength surpasses that of you or I. Stuff like that.
Honestly, I kind of wish that he spoke like that in the anime and in the dub. That'd be amazing.
And you could definitely see why, when you're doing a translation for an anime for a thing that you think is more than likely going to be mostly watched by children, especially in those days when Saban was forcing pretty strict censorship on these episodes to make them consumable by children.
Yeah.
You wouldn't translate it that way.
Not typically.
So that was one big thing I noticed. As always, the art remains spectacular.
Oh God, yeah.
And it's stuff like, I love the brief little glimpse of Raditz and Vegeta on planet Arlia, which it's never called Arlia in the manga, but just the I don't know the scenery and the way they're drawn is really excellent. Oh, I forgot to mention, you do need 2 volumes in order to read this arc. You need volume 1 of Vizbig's DBZ and volume 2, because this story, it's just long enough. It stretches over 4 Tankoban, essentially.
Oh,
it's like
okay. I get
4.5 of them. It's almost 5. So each of these Vizbigs collects 3 of those. So one of the other things I noticed in the chapter where Goku and Vegeta first face off, and they have that infamous, millions of people have shared pictures of this, memes of this. They're in their 2 ready stances to clash against each other.
Mm-hmm.
It must have been originally a color chapter.
Yeah.
But Viz did not release it in color, and it's really unfortunate, because when Vegeta is sitting in his ready to come get you stance, his hair is black, and the background behind him is also black.
Oh.
You can't see Vegeta's hair.
So now he just looks like he has a weirdly shaped head.
Yes.
Truly alien, one might say.
Then the only other notes that I really had were that I was a little surprised just how much of the aftermath stuff was not filler.
Yeah, surprisingly, the only thing that's filler is like the actual misadventures that they have in space.
Right. But like Bulma walking around in undies and drinking beer, like that's in there.
Yep.
The multiple hairstyles, like that's something I'd be very interested.
Doesn't her hair change length like 3 times in a matter of days?
Yes. So she appears at the end of the battle against Vegeta, and her hair is in a tight ponytail with bangs.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next time we see her, which is, we are led to believe, very shortly thereafter in the hospital, she bursts in and she's looking like, I don't know what this hairstyle is, because I
would describe it as Farrah Fawcett.
Okay, yeah.
Or Farrah Fawcett-esque.
Yes. It's just like very long and flowy.
Yeah.
And then the next time we see her, it's like held back with a
headband.
Yeah, a headband.
And it's also like way shorter.
And it is shorter. And I was surprised to see that pull through, and I wonder if like Toriyama was trying out this long float, like This is my theory. Toriyama was trying out this long, flowy thing, and then realized how difficult it would be to draw. It was like, nope.
Exactly what I was thinking too. The other thought that popped into my head is Torishima still editing at this point in the story?
No.
Okay.
No, this is...
Well, I'm wondering if whoever was editing or editor at this point also maybe floated the idea like, oh yeah, people didn't really like this look for her in this chapter, so maybe change her hair. They didn't like that either. Oh, change it again. Or maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe that first look people didn't like, and the editor was like, hey, maybe change it and give her some slightly longer hair, more 80s hair, if you will. And then I think maybe your description of events probably kicked in at that point where he did the chapter and went, nah, I don't like this. It takes too long to draw, and changed it again.
This was Yu Kondo as the editor at this point.
Okay.
And he is the one who... he's among the ones, because we also know Torishima had a hand in it, who fairly infamously pushed Toriyama on the androids.
Yeah, okay.
And was like, nope, try again. Nope, try again. Now, we know that Torishima actually also, but like, Yu Kondo, I think also would push Toriyama more on... It seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, that Torishima would push Toriyama on, like, story a bit more often. You know,
okay.
Do this, like, strip away this character, do this, change the focus, do that. We're trying to make this thing a hit. I trust your artwork, but you need to be pushed on story. Yu Kondo seems to me like, hey, I think you've got the formula figured out. I'm going to push you more on your character design and your artwork. And then his final editor, whose name escapes me at the moment, I think it's Fuyuto Takeda, did not push him at all.
At that point, he was probably well established and was like, I'm not going to mess with the formula.
That's like the infamous reason why the Majin Buu arc is like so all over the place, is because
the editor was kind of hands off.
Yeah, Takeda was like, just do whatever you want.
The money's literally rolling in. Just do whatever.
But so the Saiyan arc is all done. What would you give it out of 7 Dragon Balls?
Oh, wait, I did have one small note for the manga.
Okay.
It's just this one little thing.
Yep.
So it's right after Raditz is defeated. So there's the chapter where Piccolo, no, it might be mid-fight, but it's the chapter after Piccolo gets his arm blown off, and the title of the chapter in the English version that I was reading was called Farewell to Arms, and I just thought that was really good. That's it. That's my only note.
There are like other things, you know, like King Kai's puns are very different in the Viz translation compared. I mean, there's like little things like that are you would expect, right? We could get really nitty gritty about it, but I would rather not, and just kind of say that those are some of the bigger things. One of the other kind of, I don't know about big, but just kind of neat things actually, real quick. Chapter 13, which I think would be then chapter, it might be 207 overall.
Yeah.
This is where Viz's changing of things is unfortunate. It might be 206, something like that, but it's chapter 13 of DBZ according to Viz, but obviously like it was all called Dragon Ball all the time in Japan.
Yeah.
But it's in the 200s somewhere. Is Gohan dressed like Sun Wukong?
Oh, yeah, I know what one you're talking about.
And it's the image that if you watch the actual credits all the way through on the anime, you see that image pop up.
Yep.
It's very cool. I just really dig that, and it kind of warmed my heart a little bit to know that Toriyama actually had kind of drawn it.
Yeah. And
then the only other thing, I actually did have one. I forgot about this. Chapter 20 of this, again, I don't know I think that makes it like 214 overall, it has a series of boxes. It's almost like one of the tournament arcs, right?
Yeah.
Where he would have every character's face in it. One of the boxes is blank. And I went and looked it up, and in its original Shonen Weekly Jump or Weekly Shonen Jump form, there was text in that box.
Oh.
I put that text into a translator, and it came out as mostly garbled nonsense.
Okay.
But it essentially, from what I could gather from it, didn't seem to be anything that I would think you would necessarily remove. It was like, now, again, like I said, it talks about noodles, but it's basically like a warrior's training.
Okay.
And my guess would be it had something to do with like will the warrior's training pay off? You know, because they did all their training and they're about to be tested against the Cybermen. Something like that.
Okay.
So I just wanted to point that out. I don't know why that would be changed. Why that would be omitted.
Yeah, you got me on that one. I have no idea.
And it's not only like that in the Viz versions, it's been changed from the original Shonen Weekly Jump to the Tankobon cover.
Oh.
So anyone out there who knows that piece of trivia could also reach out to us.
Right on.
But so our Saiyan saga is done. What do you give the Saiyan saga out of 7 Dragon Balls?
Oh, 7. This is one of my favorite arcs in all of Dragon Ball. It's really good. Outside of like the couple episodes of filler in Gohan's training arc, it's just excellent. Foot on the gas like the whole time.
I agree. This is like the pinnacle of Dragon Ball.
This is the run that you show people if you want them to get into Dragon Ball. This is the run that you show them. Start with Raditz and go from there.
And especially like if like I think I'm going to be in the future very much suggesting to people who are considering getting into this that they start with the manga. Because it is the fastest way to get a feel for if you're going to like it. Because as much as I love the anime, I recognize that it very often runs a little too slow, pacing-wise. Especially for someone who's not already bought in from some other portion of it.
Sure.
And I think you could hand someone the first few volumes of Viz's translations. It very often has little asterisks that say this character that they're referring to appeared in Dragon Ball. This character appeared in Dragon Ball. There's like a moment where they talk about Piccolo and they're like, there's a little asterisk and it's like, Piccolo used to be a villain in the original Dragon Ball. Please go read Dragon Ball. Mm-hmm. So at least whatever few references it is doing to anything past, it's giving you the context for that.
Okay.
Understanding that this is a potential jumping on point for people.
I'm good with that.
And so I think you could hand someone these Viz translations of the first few volumes here, 4 volumes, which would take a person, you can easily read a volume a day, like easily.
Yeah, it shouldn't take very long.
They do not take that long to go through. And you could hand that to a person and go, here, read these 4 volumes, take a week, read these 4 volumes and see if you like Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
But yes, I am also at a 7 out of 7. This is some of my absolute favorite
I mean,
stuff.
Just great fights. Some of the best art this show has had up to this point. Great soundtrack, like the sound design. So, like the energy blast battle, the use of color is fantastic.
And I'll say, yes, some of the filler is a little bit frustrating, but the pacing of individual episodes is excellent.
Yes.
Like, my my biggest complaint in all of Dragon Ball, and I think everyone's, is about to rear its ugly head. I mean, it's going to be another 100 episodes from now, but the issue is going to come up where, because they ran out of time to put in filler arcs, they are stuck in turning entire single panels of the manga into 22-minute episodes.
Yeah, it's not great.
and that's where, despite the storytelling in the Namek and Frieza stuff being really, really excellent also, the anime itself, I think, for me, it has always been a slight step down from this.
Sure. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Because as cool as a fight is, it's not always that cool to watch them posture at each other for an entire episode.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the sticking point for a lot of people that I tried to get into it. They're like, but they're just standing there. And I'm like, yeah, I know they're just standing there right now, but like, give it a minute and let them actually start fighting, because it gets awesome when they start fighting. And
in the Saiyan arc, they may stand there and just stare at each other for a bit, but there will always be the payoff, I feel like, in individual episodes.
Well, and on top of that, like, there's a lot of dialogue, even though that they're not fighting. Like, there's still a bunch of, like, and it's not just like going, ooh, like, I really don't like you. Like, they're actually discussing things. Like Vegeta's going, oh, whoa, wait a minute. You guys keep bringing up this name Goku. Is that Kakarot that you guys are talking about? Like, because we'll totally wait to fight that guy just to show you guys that you have no chance.
Right. And even Raditz is like, oh, here's your backstory.
All that stuff you don't remember because you got hit on the head as a child. Let me explain it for you real quick.
Yeah. So 7 out of 7. This is awesome stuff. And
yeah, there's no pacing issues yet, and just it's like all gas, no brakes.
Right. And we're about to get into some stuff that I don't always have the fondest memories of.
Yeah.
Explicitly, like our next episode with the fake Namek stuff.
Spoilers.
But we'll see. It'll be fun to revisit it, and if we end up not being able to pull anything interesting out of those episodes, we have held on to not discussing Bulma in great detail, so we could potentially do that. We'll see.
True. Yeah.
We'll see what we come up with. Do you feel that?
Yes. I said before we started talking about Dragon Ball that I felt a rumbling.
Well, it's only intensified.
And I can still barely see.
I don't think that matters. We need to get out of here.
But how? We can't see, and we don't know where the ship is.
I hardly think that matters.
We can't see, and even if we could, we don't know which way to head, and you think that doesn't matter.
Well, I think we may have disabled the planet's entire gravity field, so whatever forces were keeping the ship away from our homing beacon are gone.
So why not just wait here until the ship arrives?
Because when has a planet's rumbling surface ever been a good thing for us?
You know what? Fair point. But which way do we go?
Just have your scouter hone in on mine and follow me. We have to go now.
Oh my Frieza, the ground is shaking apart.
Will we escape before the planet shakes apart?
The planet? You destabilized an entire planet?
Wouldn't be the first time. Will we make it out? Find out next time and help us achieve our final forum.
Final Form is written and produced by Tom Gwelly. It is performed by Dan Kinney and Tom Gwelly. Our webmaster is Dan Kinney. Our theme music is provided by YouTube content creator GVG Kit. Want to learn more about the Dragon Ball universe, including concept art, behind-the-scenes interviews, and recommendations from Jelli and Bekinney? Connect with us on social media. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Final Forum Pod. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you receive your podcasts. And of course, make sure to share it with your friends and family and help us spread the word of the glory of Lord Frieza. The Frieza Force thanks you for your listenership.